any of these people that we know that were professional athletes are like,
Yeah.
you did what? And they're kind of like, you wouldn't do that, you know? So I just think they're borderline crazy, and I mean that in the greatest amount of respect. Not crazy like they're going to an institution, but it's just like you've got
Yeah.
if you're going to be
Yeah.
elite, you got to be willing to sit on an island that nobody else is going to sit on. That's
Hmm.
what elite is. So he gives you a great example. Those young players who want to achieve something that not many people achieve, you got to be willing to do the things that nobody else is willing to do to get there.
Welcome to the How Soccer Explains Leadership podcast, where we explore leadership principles through the lens of the beautiful game.
Welcome back to How Soccer Explains Leadership. Thanks again for being a part of the conversation that we get to have here. I'm Phil Dark, your host. With me, my brother, my co-host, Paul Jobson. Paul, how you doing this beautiful morning?
Man, it is a local Waco weather report. It is beautiful here this morning. We are hitting close to hundreds in the afternoon, but the mornings are just awesome. So we're trying to get out, and the evenings are great. But outside of local weather, things are good, man. Things are going really well. Wrapping up the school year, obviously with everybody, which is always crazy. It means everybody's going to school but not doing anything for the last couple of days, just
Yeah,
parties and whatnot. So yeah, we're doing that. Just enjoying having another driver in the home. My son turning 16 a couple weeks ago, and
nice.
enjoying having a little bit of not having to take one more kid somewhere. But I'll tell you that I don't know if I've said this before, but he and I like had to like I would take him to school every morning, right? So I don't have that anymore, and I miss that.
Yeah,
So the other day
yeah.
I'm like, hey Miller, like, want to go grab breakfast before school? And he's like, yeah. He goes, would we ride together? I'm like, no, like we don't do that anymore, you know? So scheduling time with my son for a meeting to catch
Yeah,
up has been cool, but he's enjoying it. He's been great right now. He's got that freedom, so he's willing to do anything. Hey, we need this at the grocery store. Yeah, I'll go.
yeah.
Take your little brother somewhere. So that's a new adventure for us. It's been fun, but yeah,
That's
just
awesome.
ramping up for the summer, and man, stoked about these episodes we've had over these last four episodes are going to be awesome to talk about today. But how are things in the dark world?
Things are going well, and and as you talk about wrap up, we're in the season 12 post match show, which is just
Crazy.
crazy,
Yeah.
crazy. I was talking to somebody the other day. I'm like, COVID was 5 years ago. Like, what
Wow.
the heck? When you start looking at different things, but yeah, it's so cool. You're talking about that with your son, and I'm at a different phase where my son's coming back from college, and like last night, he's like, "Hey, you want to come to trivia with me and my buddies?" And I was like, "Yeah, like that's where we're at, where
That's
he's,
so cool.
going to the bar, ordering a beer, and I'm,
Yeah.
doing trivia with him and his buddies, and my daughter's coming home from Philippines doing ministry, and we're gonna have the family home together for like a day. Almost the whole family. Our married daughter is, she left and cleft, so she's off. She's
Yeah.
off in the Wisconsin wilderness. But she's coming back even. We have family camp coming up, which is going to be amazing. And on that note, we're this summer we're gonna take some time with some recasts, and you're gonna be able to do what you did last year. It won't go to be as long this time, but we're gonna get into our annals of the podcast there over the course of the next month or two. Um, so hopefully you'll go back into that, and it will inspire you to go back to those older episodes that we have, which were amazing. I mean, I'm listening to everything we've done. It's
Man.
been,
Yeah.
man, God's had some amazing, brought some amazing people to this podcast. But as this season was an example of again. But yeah, just as far as my family, and one of the things that uh we want to talk about for a minute, actually, because I'm sure people listening to this podcast have, a lot of them have kids or are coaches or whatever. And last night, my wife, as two of our kids are heading off to tryouts in the midst of finals preparation, and in the midst of year-end banquets and other things going on. And she says, "Why in the world are tryouts during one of the busiest times of the year?" And the answer is, I have no idea why we would do that to ourselves, and maybe it's because most of the people, running clubs don't have kids at that age. I don't know.
Yeah.
But it is a crazy thing that is a decision across the board, and no one has asked the customer, so to speak, and the
Yeah.
customer keeps doing it. So, but what are your thoughts on that, man?
Yeah. I mean, kind of your point to, a lot of this is created, for the younger groups. And I think it's also timing. Like we're just done with, kind of wrapped up the spring season, right? People disappear for the summer. Could be another argument. It's hard to get everybody like when is a great time. So if you're going to look
Mhm.
at the calendar and go, when's the best time to do tryouts? Like I don't I don't know if there is a great time to do
Yeah.
tryouts. The fact that it falls on the end of the school year craziness and graduation and things like that makes it really difficult. But then fast forward, let's say you fast forward 2 more weeks and you're into June, school's out, and half your families are on vacation. I don't know. Maybe that is a better time. I don't have any, I have no idea. I know a lot of groups now are doing what are called open sessions, and they're doing multiple ones, right? Like they
Yeah.
might do Tuesday, Thursday for 3 weeks in a row or something like that, instead of doing like trying to get everybody all at one spot, and then kind of gradually going through that process. But yeah, man, I don't know if there's an answer to that. Like what would be the best time? I mean, if you wait too long, you're already into the fall and the season
Yeah.
starts.
Yeah.
So I think some of these club directors and coaches, they want their summer vacation too. You know, with everything that they're doing, as well. So yeah, man, it's a good question. I think the bigger question that you and I kind of were talking pre-call are just some of the other decisions that are made for tournaments during,
Yeah.
major holidays like Easter or
Yeah.
Mother's Day. I was telling you, two of my kids had opportunities to play in tournaments on Mother's Day a couple of weeks ago, and we were like, we're not doing that.
Yeah.
We're just not. Um, so yeah, that to me is when you're talking about the family time and pulling from family time, those are actually controllables where you say, hey, this is a tournament. We can pick tournaments kind of whenever we want during the year.
Right.
Why are we picking these really impactful family moments that we need to protect? I think as families is to protect those family moments. And not say that graduation is not one, but that's a smaller segment of the
You're right.
world than who celebrates Easter or who
For
celebrates
sure.
their mothers, I hope.
Yeah.
So
There's
those,
basketball over Christmas and
yeah,
Thanksgiving tournaments and,
yeah,
yeah, every major holiday. And on one hand, they're like, well, that's when people are off and people
yeah,
can take a break. And on the
yeah.
other hand, it's what about family? And
Yeah.
I
And
think
again, the consumer, like you said, we're doing it.
exactly, exactly. So yeah, no, and I think it's one of those things that it's a thing to consider and to talk about. And I think as we're making decisions, and in fact, you took a new role as a club director in Waco,
Yeah.
Texas. So now
Yeah.
people that listen to this are all going to move to Waco and have their kids play for you because they're like, I want Paul Jobson to be my club
Oh,
director. But
totally.
those are things that are like you said are controllables, but it needs to be part of the culture and when everyone else is doing it, it's hard to say no. And
Yeah.
especially when the pressure is on these clubs to compete with the other clubs. Particularly Waco, it's not as much of an issue. Because some people, yeah, will go to Dallas or we'll go to Austin, we'll go somewhere else. But here in the Sacramento region, there's 12 clubs that all have the tryouts on the same night. And so it's well, which, and they're given an offer immediately after the tryout, you get an email in your inbox saying you have to give a yes by tomorrow at 7
Yeah.
before the other tryouts, or else you don't, or it's pulled. And it's a mess.
Yeah.
And for us, it's easier because we knew where our kids were going beforehand. But there's
Right.
parents who are freaking out during this time. And
Yeah.
I've seen that with my sister-in-law and some other people. Like they're like, what are we gonna do? We gotta go. We gotta make sure this or make sure that. It's like, oh my gosh, we're causing so much additional stress in families in the midst of a very stressful time already, right?
Yeah.
And especially like if teachers, if their kids are doing this, man, they're
Hmm.
they're at the end of their school year where they're got a million things on their plate and you add another one and decisions and stress. And so I just feel like, how can we help each other, right? How can we
Yeah.
help each other along, right? And being able to remember what this is all about. And
Yeah.
I don't think I
Probably
remember it
easier.
being about stressful
No,
causing situations.
no, and probably easier in environments like I'm in Waco,
Yeah.
as opposed to major markets like Dallas, right?
Yeah.
Where, if you're not doing those things, you are losing kids
Oh,
because
yeah.
everybody's kind of doing that, right? And
Mm-hmm.
unfortunately, it's gotten to that point, which makes it extremely difficult. for us here, we're in an environment where we're extremely segmented, but we're a small town. So the
Yeah.
goal here is how do we bring these small little segments together to try to alleviate some of the stress, like take some of the
Yeah.
responsibility off of some of these folks who are doing a great volunteer job, but want more for their kids, right?
Yeah.
And I had a session last night with some parents and just said, hey, it is about the family first, and it kind of comes down to like if your team wants to do a tournament Mother's Day weekend, that's up to you as a group. I'm not going to mandate that as a
Right.
director, right? But if your coach comes to you and you guys are like, yeah, we'd love to go all hang out together on Mother's Day weekend together at a soccer tournament, that's up to you. But that will never be a club mandate that,
Yeah.
stuff like that has to happen. So I think, giving them that opportunity instead of, making certain things mandatory, from a director standpoint, and putting some guidance too. I mean, parent education is huge. But again, I think my environment here in a smaller scenario in Waco is different than those major metropolitan areas where it's uber competitive for people and spots. And you can't have the best coaches if you don't have kids for them to coach. So it's a really crazy web that we have woven over the years.
Absolutely. No, for sure. And yeah, you said something there that I think is really important is oftentimes there will be a, you know, preseason meeting after the tryouts. You get the team together and you have a meeting with the coach and they say, "Oh, we're doing this, we're doing this, we're doing this, we're doing this." And there's this pressure to just say, "Okay."
Mhm.
Right? And I think to your point, if there's a tournament over Thanksgiving and you're like, "We're going to do Thanksgiving as a family," tell them then.
Yeah, exactly.
Don't wait till November 12th and say, "Hey, we're not going to be there." Like tell
Yeah.
them then, like, "Hey, we protect our holidays with our kids, and that's fine. We're not saying
Mhm.
don't go as a team. If you want to go as a team, but Billy won't be there, right?
Yeah.
Like, and we've done that.
Mhm.
We've done that with different things, and even this year with our daughter, it's important. She has a specific school that she wants to go to. She's a junior in high school. She's graduating next year, and it's really important for her to be seen by that school if she actually wants to go play for them. And so to be able to tell the coach, like, hey, if you guys want to go to a place in a different part of the country, that's fine. But we're going to have to go, guest play for some team to be able to do that. Like to be able to do those things and make those decisions, which are outside the box thinking, as opposed to just going kind of being that lemming that just says, I have to do this because the team does this and we're stuck. What can we do?
Yeah.
We can't celebrate Easter together because the team's doing it. No, you can say no. And
Right.
that's okay. And if more people say no to those things to protect family, maybe we won't be doing it as much. And maybe the tournaments will realize we don't have enough teams to do it during this time. Why are we doing an Easter tournament?
Yeah.
But as long as they're full, as long as we keep doing it, as long as we don't prioritize it, it's going to keep getting worse and worse and worse and growing and growing and growing. So, anyway, any final thoughts on that before we move into our episodes?
No, just your point of that. I think that early communication, as organized as we can be as early as possible from a club standpoint and a coach's standpoint within the club to communicate, hey, this is what I'm thinking as a coach. This is how the season's going to lay out. These are the couple tournaments I'm thinking about we could do. You know, then the parents can come back and say, hey, that sounds great, coach. We definitely can't do a Thanksgiving tournament. We definitely so then the coach can say, okay, I've got half my team can't do that weekend. Let's pivot and find another time. That gives the coach plenty of time to restructure and reorganize kind of the plan for the year, right? So you're right. It's just about communication.
Yeah, absolutely. And it may be that they're going to go to this one tournament, but if your kid is one key cog to the wheel, um, they'll say, okay, well, we won't do that tournament,
Right.
and that's fine, and that will be a kind of a team decision, and they can put it out to the team. But again, the more advance notice, the better, because a lot of these tournaments you have to register for months in advance.
Yeah.
So anyway, we had a great, I mean, season 12, man. I every season I'm like, dang, this was good.
Yeah.
And I think it just goes to show that everyone's got a story. Everyone's got, wisdom to be able to share. How are we listening to that? How are we asking the questions of people that we know? Like, hey, what's your story? And not say it in a way like, hey, what's your story? But like, hey, hey, like I'd love to learn about you and what can we learn from each other? I think that is something that I've seen over the course of the 170 whatever. I think we're on 171 or 172 episodes now. Like everyone's got a story. people have tremendous wisdom to be able to share, and the second half of this season is no exception to that at all. We started off with Frank Kelly, with Sean Miller, with Roman Khripunov, and then we finished off with Paul Caliguiri. And I'll tell you what, there was a lot of unexpected moments in these interviews. There's a lot of laughter in these interviews. There was a lot of amazing stories that blew me away. And I'll tell you what, we have outlines for these interviews, but I don't know that we followed an outline in any of these interviews. And they went where they were supposed to go. And sometimes they went completely different than I thought. And I was like, that was way better than I thought it was going to be. But let's start where we started, which is Frank Kelly. Cool. Just a cool story, cool interview. I love just some of the one story he shared about his buddy and just how God, does things that it's not really, how we draw it up, and there's a story in there. I'll let you guys listen to that interview about that. But just a businessman he was a lacrosse guy, but played a bunch of different sports, learned a ton of different lessons, and he shared a lot of them with us, but how he's using that in his business now, teamwork, different aspects of that. And also working with FCA and some different things. But what did you think of Frank?
Yeah, man, just one of these guys that we bring on that just has so much knowledge and so much wisdom to pour into folks, and continuously does that, and I value that. Getting a lacrosse perspective. I mean, he was throwing out names of people and things like that I think if any lacrosse people are listening, like, oh yeah, like that's awesome. I think me at least, I'm like, I bet that person's great. I have no idea who that is. But you get, as he's telling stories, like you get just the magnitude of, we're in our little soccer world and we're doing the best that we can to bring out the best in people through our sport. But to sometimes open that window to someone else who's doing it in another sport really allows us to take a peek outside of our little house and say how big this world really is, and how great, our God is, and that he's able to move in so many different ways, and to let us for a minute just go, okay, it's not just about soccer. Like, how do we share our stories with other sports, other people who have an opportunity to do this through other avenues that maybe other people are more interested in? And that really kind of opened my, and it's an obvious thing, but we get so stuck in our world that it's great to have guys like Frank come in and tell his stories and talk about, his life lessons, and how he's done life lessons through lacrosse and his kids and like that. And I'm like, this is amazing, to have this opportunity. So I really encourage folks, man, even if you're not a lacrosse person, I'm not at all. And I just loved it, just because you just get the heart of who this human is, this guy who really has made a huge impact on people. And I think that's what we're all trying to achieve.
Absolutely. Yeah. And shout out to Sean Smithson, who shared that, connected me with Frank. And that was the first time we had chatted, which was pretty cool. But also he did share, Sean's like, did you trip him up with soccer, stuff, but he actually shared a story Frank did about his soccer coaching days as well, which was fun. Yeah. Because that's that's definitely how I would be if I ever tried to coach lacrosse. It would be making stuff up and using soccer language and
the wrong terms, right?
Yeah, totally.
Yeah.
Wrong terms for whatever. And he was, but his team won the championship. So, so
all of a sudden he's a genius.
Yeah, 100%. 100%. Well, of course he's a genius. It's like you're a genius in parenting before you become a dad. Anyway, but yeah, just a fun interview, fun conversation. If you didn't check it out, go back, check that one out. And then we went to Sean Miller, one of your buddies, Paul, and with Upper 90 HQ, the video company that, you've probably seen his cameras out at your different tournaments, different parts of the country. But again, a guy who's got kids in the game, a guy who just loves the game and is using it, has used the game throughout his life in different ways. And so I just loved hearing his business journey, entrepreneurial journey, and how soccer has been a massive part of that, literally in the videoing of soccer, but also figuratively in the lessons learned that he's learned, not only as a, someone involved in the game personally, like playing and doing stuff, but also through his kids and his girls, now women, have had tremendous success in the game. And so as a dad, as a coach, as someone who's just involved with the game. So, what do you think about that interview?
Yeah, I mean, one of the reasons I wanted to get, Sean on is that I had an opportunity, and I've known Sean for a long time, but I had an opportunity over the last couple of years to really see him as an operator of what he's doing. Like I kind of caught him, like you said, you kind of catch somebody in the wild, right? Catch them doing what they do on a daily basis. And man, I just you see somebody doing what they're passionate about, and we talk about it on the thing. I kind of threw it out there. I'm like, he's always the first one there. He's always the last one to leave, and he's in charge. Like he can very much delegate things, but it's also not a power trip of watching him work to where he has to be over everything. He's a true servant of the folks that he has working with him.
Yeah.
He's the what do you need? What needs to be done? Do you have what you need? Are we taking care of that? Like he is truly a servant leader, a great example of that. And I wanted to get him on um, because he's so influential in the game, and really just how he created his business too. Of like just kind of was asked to film a game one time, and just you can
Yeah.
hear the whole story, but how that just kind of grew into filling a need. And him being a soccer person, really understood what needed to be and how things needed to be done from the perspective of a video. And then as technology has progressed, he's been able to really grow this into a great business. And the amount of things he's doing and people he's serving is pretty incredible, actually. But I've seen him in the wild. I've seen him do it, and I thought that he'd be a great person to come talk. And anytime we get somebody in this environment, the vulnerability comes out. We hear true stories of why they do what they do, the true meaning of why they do it, and what they're. And Sean is just a great example of really why we do this show. I got so much, and I've known Sean for a long time, but I learned so much about him and his why, and just was really encouraging to me to hear his story.
Yeah, absolutely. Vulnerability was a huge part of that interview. And, we talk about vulnerability, but you can talk about it, but it's not
Yeah.
nearly as effective as when you actually hear it. And it's clearly there, and you can clearly just, it's so powerful when our guests are vulnerable. And fortunately, we get that a lot. And I think it's just when someone's sharing their story, it comes out often, and I love that. It was kind of a unintentional theme too of several of our guests this season, as far as that, like getting up first out there, doing whatever they're doing, working really hard, doing everything to the best of their ability. It also went back as you were talking about him and just starting a video because someone asked him to video, right? It reminded me kind of going harkening back to our buddy Phil Smith
Hmm.
and take the call, right?
Take the
Like
call. Yep.
take the call and just you never know where it will lead to just do the next right thing and to do something out of your comfort zone, to do something that isn't necessarily your wheelhouse. If it seems to be an opportunity that is one that can be fruitful. So yeah, great conversation. The next one that we had, Roman Khripunov. Now, Roman is one of my buddies, and Paul's met him. But Roman has become, as he will say, like a son to me, because I am his father's age and older than his mother. But he's become a good friend, and just incredible story of
Mhm.
resilience, of family, staying together. I mean, I feel like I'm telling a movie trailer right now, but it could be a movie. Talking about being a refugee from
Uzbekistan.
Uzbekistan and then going, to Russia and then coming to the US, and like that simplifies it tremendously.
Yeah.
But the story there, that you can hear the whole thing, and I just go check it out. Go check it out because it's so powerful. But beyond that, just seeing again what is the next right thing, going to Galveston, which we established in that conversation is the worst beach, I think Roman said, in the world. I don't know if it could take that title, but I've never been there. You have. And but to be playing soccer on a beach, and then from out of that birthing the Cup of Nations, which is now all over the country. Incredible story to see how he, tried to kind of run from ministry, but see how God kind of called him into that. So it's a really cool conversation. But I think the things that I really draw out of Roman's story is a man who is heeding a call on his life, by just doing the next right thing and being open and being willing and being available. And that's something that is really powerful, in a world that is so big on what are you doing in 5 years? What are you doing in 10 years? What are you doing? What college are you going to go to? And what are you going to do after college? And when you're 8 years old, what college do you want to go to? Because you better know, because you got to start writing letters and sending emails and making video of yourself. And it's a guy who, that's the other part of it, is his club soccer experience is really funny. How many kids out there had to raise support to fund their club soccer when they were 15 years old? So what'd you think of Roman, man?
Yeah, I said it. I said it on the show. A guy who's wise beyond his years. And a lot of that I think is just life experience, right? He had to grow up, you know, somewhat quickly, more quickly than most people, just with the moves and the things that he went through. But just a ton of wisdom for a young guy. And I think it's just another lesson of as well, older folks like myself say, the older you get, the more you realize you don't know, right? And I think, but listening to guys like Roman who are also wise, but much younger, just being able to open your heart and listen to what God is saying through him. And I really feel that when I talk to Roman, that he is speaking what God wants him to say and doing exactly what God wants him to do. But his story to get to that point of was is great. He's not only wise, but he's funny. He's a joy to be around. I think people really enjoy just the conversation we had with him, and the impact he's making on not just his community but the world is amazing. But like you said, he's just answering that next call, and what is it that he needs to be doing? And he talks about how I think that there's some great lessons in there too, where he talks about some things that they were trying to do and they did it, looking back, did it the wrong way, but just had to make some adjustments and just, some people feel like, hey, I'm following God's call and just not working it's just not smooth. Like, yeah, that's how it works.
Totally.
When God calls you to do something, it doesn't mean it's going to be a smooth road.
Yeah.
Usually it means it can be bumpy, right? Because there's someone else in there who's trying to disrupt what God wants you to do as well. But I loved the things that he spoke into on that call.
Yeah, I've joked with him that he is I don't know that I've said these exact words to him, but he's basically a 30-year-old with about 50 or 60 years of experience,
Yeah.
and the wisdom that comes along with it. And he's definitely an old soul. He's definitely a guy. I mean, I laugh every time I hear the story of he was, 15, or his brother was 14, he was 16, coaching, you know, 13 to 18-year-olds, and they all thought that he was 30 because he had a full beard. And but also because he holds himself extremely well. Another
Yeah.
that story is incredible too, about, again, I'm just gonna tease it. Some dude pulls a gun out
Mm,
on a practice, and what ensued was pretty amazing.
yeah.
So go check out that interview. You will not, it will not disappoint. I know
No.
I've heard a lot of feedback from people on that interview, and they were pretty blown away by it. Again, vulnerability, but also just a great story with great lessons, and from a man who has learned a ton in his short years here on Earth. They're definitely
And
full
and now
years.
and now figuring out fatherhood,
Yes, yes,
his next
yeah.
his next big pathway.
That's right. That's right. And
Awesome.
so, all right. The last conversation we had, as we talked about before we started recording, I think it may be the most a podcast that was, I don't know that I've had one that was more different than what I thought it was going to be.
Yeah.
And it was Paul Caliguiri, and what an amazing story. The humility in that conversation was, and I don't know, this is going to sound bad, but it was unexpected
Yeah.
from a man who has such a high profile, probably one of the most probably the most high profile goal, maybe outside of 1950 World Cup, but maybe even more
Yeah.
because when it
It-
happened,
yeah.
that has ever happened in U.S. history.
Yeah.
And he's a guy who just a dude we're hanging out with and
Listen, let's
talking.
let's
It
let's
was
back it
awesome.
up. Let's back it up, okay? Because people hear the episode, all right, but I
Yeah.
want to take them into the inner workings of how
Yes.
soccer explains leadership, okay? So, so folks, we get on the call. I jump on the call. Phil's already
That's
on
right.
there with Paul, the other Paul, and Paul's in his car, and we're talking. He's like, "Yeah, I'm a few minutes from my house. Like, if we can if I can get to my house, that would be great." And of course,
That's
Phil's
right.
like, "Yeah, no problem. Just a couple minutes away." Of course, Phil knows where he's at. All of a sudden, Paul turns his phone camera around, and he's giving us a tour of California, basically because Paul, Phil's old stomping grounds. Like, oh, Phil, I bet you missed this, and this is great. And dude, it's like we've been friends for 30 years, and
Yeah.
we're just riding in the car with him. So basically, before you guys come into what you get to listen to, which is phenomenal on its own, Phil and I get to take a car ride with Paul Caliguiri to his home, where then we then start the call. So it was super cool to be like, just ton of humility, and just like, hey guys, let's just, instead of like, hey guys, let me call you when I get back, when I get to the house. That's what I was expecting. It was like, hey, look where I'm
Yeah.
at. Do you recognize this,
Totally.
Phil? So it was
Yeah. He's
like,
like,
oh,
where am I? I'm like,
yeah.
Dana Point, bro. Like, of course. And he drives down to San Clemente and that's like going to the pier. And I'm like, this
Yeah.
is so cool. And then also he's like, Paul, where are you from? Georgia. And then he says, Conyers?
Yeah.
And
And I'm like,
Paul's like,
of all the towns
yeah,
and yeah,
yes, which is not a big
not
city
a big
that
town.
you throw out.
No.
And he's like, what? Yeah, because Clint Mathis. And then
Yeah.
they're like old buds, like talking,
Yeah.
So,
It
Paul
was
played
funny.
with Clint and they had that connection. And it was just like you said, the how the sausage is made in this one. But that was what it was. That was, I mean, like hindsight, I wish I just hit record and we had that whole thing on it,
I know.
honestly. But I'm glad you brought that up because even back further, the way we connected, which we talked a little bit about that
And I didn't know
was,
that. And I,
yeah,
folks, it's amazing how Phil and Paul really connected. It had nothing to do with soccer.
no,
Really, really cool.
it was
So I don't know if you
crazy.
want to
And
tell the story, if you just want to
I'll
tease the
just
story.
tease
I
it
think we
a
should
little
tease it.
bit.
Yeah.
Basically, I got a call while I was at a Sac Republic soccer game, which is pretty funny because Paul coaches for OCFC and they play each other. And I'm at the game with my son and unknown caller. And so I hung up the first time. He called back and yeah, he had found something of mine that was really hard to track me down. The thing he found did not have the name Dark on it. Let's put it that way. And he said it was months trying to track someone down in my family who he could send this thing to. It was definitely above and beyond. It was definitely something that I don't know that I would have done. I can tell you I
Yeah.
probably wouldn't have done it. And it says a lot about him that he did it because he's like, I saw it. I thought I'd want it. I'd want someone to do this for me. So, talk about, do unto others as you'd want them to do unto you. He definitely went above and beyond on that one. And it was, so you definitely check out the episode to hear the story. There's more to the story, obviously, as there always is, but it just says a lot about him and, who he is. And we learned a lot about it in the conversation too. So what you guys heard, it wasn't quite as much. You didn't get the tour of Dana Point, San Clemente, that we did, but you did hear a lot from his heart and the story that I've already shared. I haven't shared the episode with my kids, but I've shared a lot of the stuff from it with my son, who's wanting to do what Paul has done, like many
Yeah.
kids do, but not many kids want to do what Paul did to get there.
Right.
And I'm just, I'll kind of leave it at that with what he did. It's incredible. Like it truly is. Like we say that a lot of times, but what he
Yeah.
did, not many people would do. And
No.
how it worked out and panned out, it truly was God putting him in positions. And then to hear what he did after scoring that $1 billion goal, as it's called, or the shot heard around the world,
Yeah.
was definitely unexpected. That defining moment, I was definitely surprised by. And I don't know. What'd you think?
100%.
What'd you
Listen,
think?
the whole thing from like how you guys met to the story that he tells about his life, and a lot of like behind the scenes pieces of that really tell who he is, it all lines up. I mean, it's just like,
Mhm.
okay, that's who
Yeah.
this guy is, and it's really cool. I've said this before, and this gives me an opportunity to say it again, because we talk about players who want to be elite, right? And what it takes to get there. If you want to
Yeah.
be like this person, you got to be willing to do what this person did to get there. And I've said this maybe 100 times, if not more, um, is that those players borderline are crazy.
Yeah.
And I mean, and
Yeah.
let me finish that statement, because
Yes.
that's
Yes.
kind of a bam right in the face. And my wife is one of them. Okay. Elite athletes, I think, and this is through my unprofessional research, but through my experience, professional athletes, most of them live on the edge of crazy because they're willing to do things that most people aren't willing to do and sit just on the edge. If they go a little bit further, they're absolutely crazy and they'll never be successful because that drive takes them
Yeah.
somewhere that's not successful. But they've got that ability to drive themselves to a point where most people are really, really uncomfortable, so they never get there. They go to the point of being really uncomfortable and sit in a spot where nobody else will go because everybody else is uncomfortable. So they can sit there and be elite because no one else is there. And they can just sit there. They have their struggles. It's not easy. They're not comfortable, but they're comfortable being uncomfortable in that position. And when you hear Paul's story, you'll hear that throughout his journey of like, man, he did that. I don't know if I'd do that. Okay, then you won't maybe have the opportunity that Paul did. I hear
Yeah.
things that Marcy did through her youth career that, just kind of like, you did what? That okay, no wonder. Like Charmaine
Yeah.
Hooper, like any of these people that we know that were professional athletes are like,
Yeah.
you did what? And they're kind of like, you wouldn't do that. So I just think they're borderline crazy, and I mean that in the greatest amount of respect. Not crazy like they're going to an institution, but it's just like
Yeah.
if you're going to be
Yeah.
elite, you got to be willing to sit on an island that nobody else is going to sit on. That's what
Hmm.
elite is. So he gives you a great example. Those young players who want to achieve something that not many people achieve, you got to be willing to do the things that nobody else is willing to do to get there.
Absolutely. I as you were talking, there are times in this show where as someone is talking, I'm like, that's the clip for the episode.
Yeah.
That is the clip for the episode. Like I couldn't say any better. So I'm not even going to try. So yeah, folks, you want to listen to that episode. Honestly, I don't even want to talk it anymore
Yeah.
because you got to listen to that episode. It's one of my favorite stories. Like there's stories in that I'm like, I'll talk about. Um, for different reasons than like Graham Daniels is one that is pinned on our
Yeah.
web page for a reason. Different reasons for that. But this will be an episode I talk about. So
Listen, I've just been telling people that I went on a car ride with Paul Caliguiri. That's all I've just been telling people. Like, wait, you're in California? I'm like, no, I was in Waco, but I was in the car with Paul in California.
it's like, what is
Uh,
that? The like they do car rides with like Jerry Seinfeld or something. They do like
yeah,
the
yeah,
taxi
celebrity
cab
car
things.
rides or whatever it's called.
We could have done that. I was actually thinking about it as we did it, but
He'd probably do it
um,
again. He's great. He's amazing.
oh,
He's
it was
so
fun.
fun.
I want to
So
go,
fun.
hang out and grab a drink with him
Yeah.
at the pier right by his house. So um he didn't show us the address. So I was like, sweet, I got a free parking spot when I go to the beach now.
Yeah,
But
right,
didn't
right.
get that close yet, but there's time. So anyway, um as we wrap up season 12, Paul, what are you thinking?
Man, Phil, I'm just grateful for the journey. This has been so much fun. Selfishly, I feel bad because I think selfishly, I'm getting so much out of this, as I know you are too. And I just really, we say this, and I don't know if people really believe us or not, because sometimes you say things so many times, it's kind of like, oh, they're just saying that again. I just really hope that like, this is beneficial for folks because it's been so beneficial for me. And, Phil, I think people know we don't get paid to do this podcast. We do it in our free time. If we have any, we schedule it, and you do a great job of making this happen. I do nothing but show up. So thank you to you for all you do to make this thing happen for everybody out there that listens. Because truly is an amazing opportunity to look into lives of people we may know or never know, to hear their stories, and it makes life real, because we're all on this journey, and sometimes we feel like we're alone, even though we're not. But to hear other stories that maybe we can relate to through our own journeys is so beneficial. And as a community, those are things we need to be doing to help each other through these things. So grateful to you, Phil, of course, and I'm grateful to the folks that get to engage in this with us. It's just been an amazing journey, and I'm excited about what God has ahead.
Yeah. No, I'm so grateful. I'm right there with you. Just gratitude for what we get to do and for the people we get to connect with. And it's episodes like the ones we had this second half that keep us coming back. I can it's like, man, it's a lot of work, but when you get through this, it's like it's so worth it. It's so worth it. And even if one person out there, folks, you're affected, but I do hope that, and we say this not because we're getting paid, not because we're making big money, not because we're whatever, but like if this is helping you, share it with people.
Yeah.
Because like I know it helps me. I mean, yeah, we get to do this. We literally do not make a dime. This cost us money to do, but and time and energy, but it's so worth it. It's like it's so worth it. And I the thought of not doing it is like, nah, I mean, that would stink. Like this is so cool. And all that to say, I just want to say thank you to all you out there for engaging, because we do this. Yes, we love doing it, but we do it to help people. We do it to help people in different ways, and I hope it is. And if it is, let us know. You can send us email, send us feedback, and also rate and review the show, share it with others in different ways. And as always, though, we hope that you're using it in your lives to be better in all that you do. I say that at the end of every episode, and I mean it. I don't just say it as a tagline. No, it's like that's why we do what we do. And if you want to learn more about Warrior Way, Paul talked about it earlier in the podcast. Check it out. Go to the show notes. Check it out. If you want to learn about the stuff that I'm doing with Providence World, we're doing stuff in Honduras. If you want to take a team, we have opportunities that you can take a team to Honduras to do ministry and do camps, to play some games. Paul has opportunities with Warrior Way to do different things. And so check out the show notes. Engage in those ways as well. And as always, folks, we hope that you take what you're learning from the show and you use it to be a better parent, a better spouse, a better coach, better leader, better in all that you do in your life. And you continually remind yourself that soccer does explain life and leadership. Have a great couple weeks. Have a great summer till we see each other again.